drawing, 1,960 plus today's cake. The draw for the Joker, ticket number 5440426. 5440426. All right, Kathy. For the Lowry Bucks, 5440421. 5440421. Again, 5440421. Okay, I'd like to invite Glenn Meyer forward to introduce our speaker, please.
Thank you, President Jackie. Jim Puzzi and Audrey Damani are both members of what is getting to be a smaller and smaller club. They are lawyers who are born and bred in Nevada, who have dedicated themselves to remaining in Nevada and serving the people of Nevada. And what's even more unusual these days, full service business law firm. I'm going to tell you some stuff about them that you won't find in their bio. First of all, Audrey, in addition to being a lawyer, is a rancher. She and her family have ranched lands in northern Nevada. Ranched, is that the right word? Ranched lands in northern Nevada for over 100 years. Jim Puzzi came to the year's legislative session, give you some updates on the new laws that have been passed here in Nevada that are going to affect not only our businesses but also our day-to-day lives. It's a very important subject, and so pleased and proud to have my colleagues here with me today. Please welcome Jim Puzzi and Audrey Damani.
Thank you, Glenn. You know, I know earlier there was another mic floating around. Is there any way that you might be able to grab that, and then Beauty of the Beast will have to play the game? Thank you very much. For starters, thank you very much for having us. Glenn is right. The legislative updates and everything that there's attached to the legislature, it gets to be a mess, especially in our state, because they only meet every other year, and it's only for a period of 90 days. And during the course of this last 90-day period, they managed to wedge almost 1,100 bills into a 90-day period. And they successfully got through 500 that were actually passed. So as you can imagine, the amount of attention that goes into some of the lawmaking isn't what we would probably think is appropriate for that to happen. So it becomes very, very important that if there is something that's related to your business or something that's related to you individually, that you have a voice. And Audrey and I are lucky enough to be up in the north end of the state, up in Reno, and specifically in Carson City. And so, for better or for worse, we get our opportunities to kind of go up there and, as Glenn said, see the sausage made. So, of those 1,100 proposed bills and roughly 600 passed bills, we grabbed 20 of them. I'm sure there is some bill on there that you might have some interest in that we are not going to be able to get to today, and the short amount of time that we've got. And for that reason, and to say it up front, as Audrey and I are both, make sure that there's some business cards that you can get in touch with Glenn. I'd be happy to answer any questions as far as they go. But we figured the easiest thing to do so we can kind of stay on track as to what's going on, because making law is really kind of a foreign topic, if you will, is everybody, I hope, has got access to the little handout that we've got there. And what we've done is we've kind of put the 20 highlights that we want to hit on there and kind of walk through and give you a little bit of a background of not only what is happening in these particular assembly bills and senate bills, but also tell you kind of what the net effect is of how it's really going to affect us. So, kind of without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start, if you will, at the top. I apologize, I turned upside down. There we go. All right, the first one that we've got is the issue concerning Senate Bill 551, the payroll tax rates. And this is very typical of legislation. I thought it was a great one for us to go ahead and start with, because we always say that we're going to put in a particular rate increase or tax increase or fee increase or something like that for a specific purpose, and don't worry, it'll sunset out and disappear. Everything will go back to the way it was once we've accomplished our purpose. Well, our very first one shows that, once again, we might have fallen for it. The payroll tax rate increase, if you'll see, they were previously increased with an expiration date. Now they've been indefinitely extended. So, the payroll taxes that you were currently paying that were for a special purpose originally, they are now extended in perpetuity.
Yeah, it was passed about 10 years ago, and every session they decided that they would, let's go ahead and put the sunset provision in, and each session they would consider, well, this session they actually took out any sunset provision, and going forward those rates will remain the same, unless they're changed by the next session.
I think they get tired of dealing with, okay, let's extend it for another 2-year period, finally just so much to leave it in. The next one that we would like to touch base about is AB 556 or 456, and this is important to literally everybody here, because everybody is either a business owner or is working or has children working or something, and this is Nevada's version of kind of keeping up with the balance of the country with the higher minimum wage. And how Nevada is going to go ahead and do this, and this is in private employment in Nevada. It hasn't, the effects of what might happen from a public entity standpoint isn't completely fleshed out yet. So this right now is for private entities, which encompasses about 90%, to be very honest with you. This is effective July 1st of 2019. And what it says is basically, over the course of the next 5 years, the state of Nevada is going to gradually keep raising their minimum wage until they hit the peak of $12 per hour. Currently, the minimum wage is $8.25, and it's going to incrementally increase over the course of the next 5 years to go ahead and reach that $12 per hour. Now, there's a little bit of a twist in it because of all of the affordable care stuff, the requirements that people need to be insured, things of that nature. Right now, minimum wage is $7.25 if you're providing insurance, $8.25 if you're not providing insurance. And both of those will start to increase. The first step is a 75-cent increase on July. If you're not offered health insurance, and $11 for those who are offered health insurance, and that step up will finally be in full force by the year 2024. So that is how Nevada has taken on this increased minimum wage, and it's going to have effect on everything.
It was hotly contested at the legislature. One of the questions that was continually raised was whether the people that are receiving tips, whether they should be moved up to that rate, or they would be exempted from it. And they ended up that all employees, they didn't exempt particular employees. Some employers testified that it's hard to get, employees to work the non-tip jobs when, you know, when they have a minimum wage of $12 and, receiving tips. But, the legislature, in the end, they voted to go ahead and adopt it to apply to everybody. And then one of the things that they also did is adopted another joint resolution where, to change the Constitution, to put it on the ballot. It will have to be passed at the next session and then be voted on by the people. But what that does is it will actually increase it automatically upon the vote of the people to $12. And so it could, end up circumventing this bill, depending on if that process passes. But they started that process as well.
Yeah, I think what Andrea said is this is kind of the ultimate eventually backup plan. We're also going to put out a ballot question that might give us $12 a week. In the event that that doesn't pass, they've got legislation on the books that will keep preventing incentives.
And one other thing that they did with this bill is that they created a right of people to sue. So an employee can sue if they feel that they're not being paid what they're supposed to be paid. They have 2 years to sue their employer. So, and if they are successful, then they're entitled to all of their attorney's fees and costs as well as the back pay and any other remedies that they're entitled to.
And that's why I kind of preface this thing at the very beginning is that's why it affects really everybody, because it's not going to be about should someone have got an extra 75 cents over the course of the 40 hours that they work. That is a number that is manageable. What it gets to be is it gets to be the attorney's fees and costs. And they don't have to win big, they just have to win. And so that is where there could be a real serious effect on employers. That kind of segues us into the next one, which is SB 166 about ensuring equal pay for equal work based on gender. And this would seem nonsensical in this day and age. There's no doubt about it. The law makes an unlawful employment practice for failing to provide equal pay to all genders for equal work and provide civil penalties and fines for violations. Well, what this basically done is the Nevada Equal Rights Commission, it's given them some teeth, if you will, in the event that these things aren't done. They can, there's going to be a tiered schedule for the number of violations and how frequently they occur for going ahead and violating this provision, and it also allows the person who believes they've been violated that there's been a violation. It allows them to file a lawsuit within 90 days if they have let the Nevada Equal Rights Commission know of their issue, and the employer has you want to do something? Attention. An emergency situation is we getting this on video? You didn't scream. Oh my God. Attention. An emergency situation is detected in this building. Proceed to the nearest exit and leave the building. Do not re-enter the building until directed by the proper authority. Attention. An emergency situation is detected in this building. Proceed to the nearest exit and leave the building. Do not re-enter the building until directed by the proper authority. Attention. An emergency situation is detected in this building. Proceed to the nearest exit and leave the building. Do not re-enter the building until directed by the proper authority. Attention. An emergency situation is detected in this building. Proceed to the nearest exit and leave the building. Do not re-enter the building until directed by the proper authority. Attention. An emergency situation is detected
continue?
This sounds like what my wife says when I tell her I'm working late back. All right, let's do this. I'll talk a little bit louder. I've never been accused of talking too quietly. So we're talking about equal pay for equal work and under gender. So there shouldn't be any difference between males and females. That seems something, as I mentioned, that makes a lot of sense in today's day and age. However, why they put this in place is to cure what wasn't happening in the past. So if you have got a male and a female that were somehow different in the past, not only does it say that it needs to be going forward equal, but you need to also rectify the difference between the two that was in the past. So there's a built-in kind of hidden cost to this one that goes in there. Because it's equal pay going forward. There's nowhere that it says that we're going to make it equal for all the younger people who are getting into it. It says equal pay for equal work and equal gender. So it's raising some interesting for goofballs like Glenn and Audrey and I, who do this stuff. It raises some very interesting legal things. Does that mean that you have to rectify all the discrepancies in the past? Or does that mean from this point forward you go on? Interesting things that come up that people on their face don't necessarily think of that can have a huge effect on the cost of doing business.
How far do you go back?
Well, I think what the thing is it's not write someone a lump sum check to catch them up if they have been paid $30,000 less over the last 10 years, for instance. But what it is if Audrey's making $100 more than I'm making because she is in an all-female group that says, you want to know what, we think that we should pay females more than we should pay males. Okay? From the point forward, if we hire males and females, we need to pay everybody the same. But you also got to get this guy who's $100 short caught up with everybody as well. So it's not go back in time, but it might be raise that person who's $100 less in pay, raise them $100 as well.
Evaluating all of your employees.
Yeah, and that's what it is. As Audrey said, it's evaluating all your employees, but there's a built-in hidden cost that's in there that, boy, if you've got a good size operation and you've got 100 employees and you've got 50 males and 50 females, it's not only everybody that you hire going forward has to be equal, but you now need to make your 50 males and 50 females equal if they're doing the same thing as well. So that could be a big chunk right out of chute once this thing gets initiated. And if you'll look at it, this starts effective January 1st of 2020. So if you're in a situation as far as that goes, you ought to start looking for a little bit of a nest egg because you're going to have to catch everybody up. This doesn't mean just going forward. It means everybody who's currently with you. Yeah.
Businesses were leaving California to come to Nevada because of the tax problems. And now we're reversing it and sending them back.
Well, sometimes my tongue swells when I get asked questions about folks coming from California and here and going back and why they do it. But yeah, we certainly have got a huge effect on our state government by our big sister right next door. There is no doubt about it. The influence of the Californians coming in is undeniable. Whether that's good or bad is a different topic, but the effect is undeniable. There's no doubt.
And during this past session, because all three, the Assembly, the Senate, and the governor are all of the same political party, that changes the dynamic. So a lot of this legislation, you don't have a checks and balances on the other side with another party. It works really well when you have the D's on one side, the R's on the other, or the Republican governor. Somebody that can take a look at some of these things and say, hey, this is session as well. We have all three key people, all of the same party. So
Laws will change. There's just undeniable. There's no way around it. The next one is pre-employment drug screening. We know that marijuana is a big thing going on, whether or not it's recreational marijuana, whether or not it's medical marijuana, whether or not you can do what you're going to do with employees based upon it. The very first one that's talked about what you're going to do in employment context is this drug screening. What basically it said is that an employer cannot refuse to hire a person simply and solely because they tested positive for a marijuana test. An employer is not entitled to do that. Let me finish this and give the caveat to it, and then I'll be happy to answer the question. Interestingly, this doesn't apply to persons who, and this is going to be very broadly interpreted, I'm sure, by employers, to people who drive a vehicle in their job role, doctors, and firefighters. I guess attorneys and cops are okay, but doctors and firefighters, and people who drive a vehicle in their job. Your guess is as good as anybody's at this stage of what that means. But those folks are going to be immune from it. But at least as this is on the books, and keep in mind all new legislation is going to wind up in the courtroom somewhere at some point in time to see what these kind of murky thoughts and words actually mean according to our Supreme Court. But as it is right now is you can go ahead and give someone a marijuana test, but you cannot deny that person or refuse to hire that person solely because of the results of that marijuana test.
You answer my question.
You can have drug policies within your company, so once they're hired, they would be required to follow the drug policies. But for the purpose of hiring them, because I guess marijuana stays in the system much longer than alcohol. I don't know how long, but I guess that was the reasoning of some legislation.
Well, I don't think I would look at me, but yeah, I think it's up to 4 days before it metabolizes out. And depending upon some reports, you get to 2 weeks in your system. So what they're saying is that is such a loose, metabolism rate is so loosely defined that we're not going to say that can be so. Moving on, the Unequal Rights Commission directives and statute of limitation changes. Basically, all this is saying is that the Unequal Rights Commission is how the process works is you have to go before them first. You have to get a right to sue letter before you can go. You just can't have employees sue employers right out of chute. We've got kind of a screening panel, if you will. And what has happened with a couple of different pieces of legislation, but kind of the center point of this one is this SB 177, is it has affected the length of time that you can wait until you can file an action, and it also has addressed those right to sue notices, what they need to entail, what they need to include, how soon they need to come out. Just a lot of everything starts up like in January afterwards or whatever. Some start now, and so if you've got running the situations as far as that goes, be very aware of when the new laws kick in. Some start immediately in 2019, October 1st. Some start the first year. Some don't start until July of next year. So you're looking through it. Something seems to be. How's it get accumulated? How is all these things happening? You know what? No, that's too difficult. Not going to go ahead and do it. Well, sorry, that's not the answer anymore. Now the answer says if you employ more than 50 people, this is what you must offer. And it walks through this scenario. What it says is must offer at least 40 hours of paid leave per year. And then it says that the way that they would make people, you guys all remember the Arnold Horseshack thing on Welcome Back, Kotter, where he'd come in and said, Arnold's not here today, he's sick, here's a note signed Arnold's mom. That doesn't work anymore. So what folks used to do, employers used to do, is say, if you're going to have some time off today, if you're sick, you need to show up at work, and I need to see that you're actually sick before you go home. The state has said, sorry, that isn't going to fly. They don't need to show up here sick at work, before, or even inform their employer, because we're going to give them up to 40 hours in these situations with over 50 employees. They can use them for whatever they want. And the impact, the mathematical formula.
Well, they start accruing it at 0.01923 hours for each hour of work performed. and up to 40 hours per year. That 40 hours they're entitled to roll over by statute now, 40 hours of their paid leave. So they can roll over to the next year up to 40 hours. And also they after 90 days they can start using they're entitled by law now after 90 days to start using that free time off.
Yeah, we all, remember times when it was like, well, now you have to work here for a year before you're really entitled to any time off, things of that nature. Sorry, it starts accruing 90 days now. And they can start using it as soon as they accrue it. If they accrue 2 days, they can use 2 days. They don't have to wait until a certain amount is there. And if they want to save up, once they get to 40 hours and roll it all over the next year, and suddenly they got 80 hours next year, they can do it. So it is really making a change in the employer-employee relationship.
Is that part-time or full-time?
That's for full-time employees.
And keep in mind that it's also, this kicks in also for situations with over 50 employees, so it's larger employees.
But one of the things that you also need to keep in mind that there's a number of pieces of legislation that are not listed here where they're very concerned about misclassification of employees. If they're really full-time employees, but you're keeping them as temporary employees or independent contractors, there's bills that are trying to address those issues so that people are receiving the benefits that they're entitled to.
The last one that was we thought was of interest in this kind of employment arena is the injured worker. Somebody that's not in a network plan, they want to see if it is in a network plan. They want to go to their uncle or their aunt, they do whatever they want. There's not a company doctor that you must go to.
And in fact, the statute specifically states that they have a substantive right and it's a substantive benefit. So it says that this is a right of an employee. It's not just something phasing something out or changing something. It's making it a right of an employee, which of course every time there's rights and there's violation of rights and there's possible lawsuits or complaints with the NLRC.
Is this a workman's compensation director?
It's part of the, it affects the workers' comp. Yes, it is for workers'
Whether you go to
compensation.
see the doctor you want, it's workman's comp, that
Correct,
is responsible?
Yes. Yes, it is. All right, moving on kind of out of the employment arena to something because we're talking about injured workers. Moving on to healthcare and AB 170, that starts talking about the pre-existing conditions that you see on there. Basically what that's done is it just incorporates everything that's happened federally with the Affordable Care Act concerning pre-existing conditions. They wanted some continuity because, especially honestly in a city like Las Vegas, where you're relatively close to the California companies, that if you're a construction company working up in Lake Tahoe, it just depends on what side of the county line or the state line that you're on. And so, the Affordable Care Act. And that would be interesting to see because, as you guys all watch, there's rumblings about what's going to happen to the Affordable Care Act federally. So Nevada is just trying to not be off on an island all by themselves, and we are going to at least follow what the feds have said for pre-existing conditions, so we don't get any more hot water. I think that was as much a protection thing as anything else. AB 469, emergency room healthcare providers. And what this one says, because as you can imagine, when you're in an emergency situation, something bad happens, the last thing you're doing is pulling out your wallet, checking your card, calling in your claims rep, saying, am I in network? And you're in the middle of having a heart attack or a stroke. We need to get some medical care in. And what this does is this says that that out-of-network patient, care to patients for out-of-network hospitals is they can bill at in-network rates, and then they have to work out whatever the differences are with the person's insurance carrier, not with the patient. So in some out-of-network situations, if you that, and we'll pay 20% of it up to $10,000. And some care flight situation said, well, your flight costs $200,000. And so what they will do is they'll turn around and they will say, I'm coming after you personally, patient, because we provided the service to you. Thanks, insurance company, for paying a portion of it, but we're not walking away from our balance. And it has put, as you can imagine, a lot of individuals in a lot of economic stress. So what this is trying to do is say, listen, you in-network and out-of-network disputes, you guys go figure that out amongst the carriers, leave the patient out, which, in my humble opinion, seems to make some sense. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I really don't have much to add to it, other than it'll be interesting to see how those costs are passed on. Somewhere along the way, they'll probably be passed on, whether it's, through higher insurance premiums on the carrier side, or the emergency.
That was an area of the law that people didn't know if you're actually a mother or you're not, if you're caring for somebody else. This helps clarify that. Medical marijuana, it says these are uses that you can also have for medical marijuana. It talks about anxiety and autism, which changed the list. This loses a little bit of its effect now that recreational has passed, because you can get it regardless. But in the event that there is some kind of federal regulation that comes down, they don't like having recreational marijuana and leave medical marijuana, they thought it'd be best to have a better exhaustive list of things that you can use prescribed marijuana for.
Well, then as an employer as well, when they're listed on here and your employee has a medical marijuana card and falls within any of these categories, you have to be very careful how you handle those employees, so that you're not violating, doing something improper.
That is fine. Again, as you can see, we're probably 2/3 of the way through the list. Audrey and I are certainly around to touch bases with them, look through the things that are there. If you've got any questions, we've certainly got business cards we'll get to you. It was a busy session, to say the least. And a lot of things that have come down, we try to pick the ones that would affect business folks the most. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both for speaking with us today. Yes, we have our Share What You Can award for each of you today.
Thank you very much.
And that means we're going to donate a donation to the USO in your name.
Awesome.
Share What You Can.
Thank you.
The words of a woman. Self. One. Serving one another and rejoicing in the fellowship of Rotary. Meeting adjourned.